for her.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Don Mooers, and welcome to Montgomery Week in Review. In the world of symbols, some carry an unwelcome message. Fred Evans, who comments for this program on a regular basis, will give us some thoughts about what or what shouldn't be known about them. The July issue of the Beacon has a third installment of the housing pullout section. Stuart Rosenthal, the publisher and editor of the newspaper, is here to tell us about why it's worth saving. The question of whether a person should wish to know if he or she is likely to get an irreversible disease becomes more compelling as more and more information is available about these diseases. Henry Hailstock has some thoughts about this very important topic. Our public school students may be out of school right now for summer break, but public schools are busy nonetheless. Jane DeWinter has the details about what's going on in our schools now and with a look ahead at what's coming up in the fall. Fred, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back.
So these are not symbols we're talking about in a band or orchestra.
Right.
We're talking about real life symbols that mean something to people, offensive symbols, aren't we?
Right. The most recent example was at Washington and Lee University, Virginia, where a group of students, I believe it was a group of African American students for the most part, were offended at the fact that the Confederate flag was still being displayed very prominently at Robert E. Lee's gravesite.
Right.
And there had been other protests in the past about that, but they felt that it was offensive to the students, all students, but those students particularly who were there. And just, I think it was 2 days ago now, the president of the university, along with the board of trustees, decided to remove the Confederate flags and actually offered an apology for some of the negative history of Washington and Lee, and the fact that that campus housed and had slavery on its campus.
So many years ago, I mean, Robert E. Lee was president, I believe, of Washington and Lee after he stepped down as being general of the Confederate Army. But this is 150 years ago. Why does it still matter, Fred?
Well, I think it still matters because while those incidents while slavery was going on, no one was protesting it, and then finally we ended slavery legally, but then we still battled in this country, and I don't have to rehearse history here, but we all know the battles of desegregation and
Can I
all those
interject
issues.
something?
Yeah.
Anything that symbolizes something that is detrimental to you, your family, your race in general, should not be prominently displayed. Why? Because if you look at what that flag represents, lynching, burning, bombing, shooting, denial, okay? All of that, oppression. Why should it be there? Okay, and the same thing holds true for any symbol or for anyone. We were talking about it before the show started. The name for the Redskins is some pros and cons for it. However, people are lining up on both sides, and if you think about it in history, the same thing holds true.
Well, the Confederate flag certainly. I mean, I think with is it states' rights or is it slavery? I mean, I think wasn't that the argument in the state of Virginia while still having that out there, or Mississippi, or these other places?
Georgia is a prime example.
Yep.
They still have it in front of
That's
their
right.
state house, and you had some hotels. I stayed several years ago. I stayed at a Marriott in Georgia at a conference. I was about ready to leave out of there because they still had it up there. And I said, and I talked to some of the people that I was there with the conference.
Right.
And they had a discussion with the manager. You would not believe what they were trying to justify on that flag.
I was a history teacher back a long time ago. And I think we have to really analyze how we teach some of these issues of going from slavery, the Holocaust, women's rights. We have a tendency to agree with the concept of history as a lie agreed upon, where we model it in a certain way, and we don't want to talk about what Henry just mentioned, all of the tragedy that occurred around all those issues. So that Confederate flag represents a great tragedy in this country.
But we do
And-
need to remember these things. I mean, we can't
Exactly.
get rid of them so far that we don't have museums, we don't have books,
Right.
textbooks,
Exactly.
we
And
don't
that's
learn
what
the
I was
history.
saying. There's a
Exactly.
difference,
That's-
though, is having, like, okay, you have a museum on the Civil War or on the history of
Absolutely.
the United States, and
Put
you
it in
show the
context.
Confederate flag, as opposed to having it displayed now as a symbol of, pride or whatever outside a hotel or a school.
Would
or
you want
whatever.
something thrown in your face like that? To have you understand that people are celebrating or think it's not a problem of something that represents something that really was degrading.
Sure.
That's the problem that I have with that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you look at the United States. The United States has a history of really oppressing people. Now, look at the first ones that were here, the Indians. We use all kinds. When I say we, the Americans use all kinds of excuses to oppress them, to deny them, to
let's-
take away from them.
So let me get, Fred, let's bring in then, we've got about a minute left only, on the Redskins question. As a symbol, certainly Native Americans have spoken out. There are some Native American groups who have said it's fine, but where do we go on
Well,
that?
I personally feel that it should be removed. That's my own personal feeling. I understand the controversy of it, but what's not in the discussion, not to bring, is the Cleveland Indians. When you look at that symbol, and the symbol of that mascot.
See,
so to
there's
speak.
a difference.
Let
Okay,
me finish.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
And
20
then,
seconds
and then you've got high schools in our country that have different names. I saw one in California, the Arabs, the midgets. All these things on different levels are degrading to certain groups of people, and some much more severe than others.
Real quick, we got 5
Yeah,
seconds though.
I mean, the name Braves, the name
Okay.
Arab is not bad. It's just how you put it in context. Redskins, yes.
I
Okay.
didn't, yeah, that's
We got to end there.
Yeah, okay.
We're going in on the housing side. Thank you, guys. Stuart,
Yes, Don.
welcome back.
Thank you.
Tell us about what's going on in this month's housing
A
insert.
little less controversial, I would say, the housing and home care options section.
Ooh.
But the reason why I think it would be worth saving is there are a number of different stories in there for people who either are planning to stay in their homes as long as they live and want to know how to make it suitable and accessible for themselves, and those who want to move and look for retirement communities or whatever.
Okay.
We sort of cover the gamut. So one of the stories that I'm most interested in, I love the technology that's out there now, and there's a study being done at a retirement community, not around here, but one that's testing some of this new technology that we can use for health purposes. So they're trying to also try not to be personal and take the cameras right in people's faces and stuff. People don't like that kind of supervision, but they do it more subtly. There's monitors under the mattress that measure your pulse and your respiration rate. There are cameras at the floor level that just watch.
Whoa. I'm not
Oh,
sure
okay,
what I
okay,
understand
okay.
going on at these retirement communities.
Well, I have.
You're right, there could be some interesting things there. But the point is they have found that with these kinds of things, including this camera, which checks just the feet level so they can see, A, that you're moving, and B, if your gait is changing, getting slower or smaller
Okay.
steps or whatever, they can detect 10 days to 2 weeks before anything happens that something's going to happen.
Who gets to observe these videos?
Well, the people in the study right now, but it's going to be, if it takes off in these communities, it'll be the staff of the communities, the nurses and whatever, because they can find that before people fall, which is what institutes a lot of the
Right.
broken
Yeah.
hips and other problems that put people away. Before they fall, they start having these gait problems, or they start having the respiration problems,
Right.
whatever. If they have emphysema or something, they can pick that up from the mattress before it gets too bad, before they have to go to the hospital. There are lots of potential cost savings and health savings with these kinds of
Yeah,
technology.
there are also a lot of privacy issues that are involved.
Well, that's why I say they're
too.
trying to work that out in such a way that it's not so obvious and not so.
I can see in a retirement home where the temperature goes up, and they break down the door to try to rescue somebody, and they
No, I do. Yeah, I know. I hope there's a turnoff valve or a turnoff switch.
They will.
But
They
there's a
will.
limit.
They will call you before they break the door down. I would say,
Well,
presumably. Another
Robe-
story that I
robes
thought
for
was
everyone. What's
interesting.
next?
A lot of people, when they get older, they want to downsize or at least get rid of all the junk
Right.
that's
Yeah, that's
collected.
true.
And sometimes
Yeah,
there's
that's
stuff that like my parents inherited stuff from their parents, and and then when they
Oh,
moved,
yeah.
it was like generations of stuff. So you have all these things. They have some value. You just don't know what they are, what they're worth. So to go to an appraiser, I mean, to really go to a jewelry store appraisal and get an appraisal, it can be costly. I didn't know this, but there are online appraisal sites. You take a picture of your several pictures of your item.
Legit?
Yes, and you write down descriptions that you have about them, and then you upload them on the website. And a few days later, they get back to you with some information on a range of prices or whatever that it's really worth.
And are they secure that then that information isn't going to somebody who's then going to be breaking
I
into
mean,
your
house.
house? Or something, yeah.
Well, that's a good. I don't think they have to know that kind of information. You're not giving them your house address when you do it.
Oh.
I haven't tried it myself yet, but I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah.
I want to give it a try.
What else?
Questions and answers on home care. You know, do you want to bring in an agency to have someone provide health care when you need it, or do you want to try to hire your own person because it might be cheaper and you might have more of a personal rapport with them?
Well, with
and,
a lot
you know,
more paperwork, you've got to do the taxes and everything else.
That's
where
true,
does
too.
it seem to be?
They're pros and cons. That's what the article sort of discusses, the pros and cons of the different
And
options.
you know, that's important because I recently dove into home care for my mother-in-law, and really with some of the healthcare programs that we have here in the state, in the county actually, is very helpful, but it takes a long time. Montgomery County just now received that obligation of having this home care program, and they have several organizations outside of the government to really do that.
Wow. What's more? What's
Let's see, what else? We had another story we were going to talk about. What was it?
Well, going through, I mean, when you're looking at all the different housing and the villages, yeah, that's
villages
where
are
we're going.
catching on so much. You know, there's more
Even
of
more.
them in the area. Yeah, Montgomery County has a lot of them in formation. A lot of them going. There are 45 or so in the Washington D.C. area. A higher concentration of villages in this metropolitan area than anywhere else in the country.
Now, Stuart, I spoke to a number of my neighbors
Yeah.
who are in their 70s, 80s, and trying to set one up around the Burning Tree area.
Yes, it's
This
going,
is one.
right, yeah.
But one of the issues that comes up is that those who would benefit from it are reluctant to reach out to the neighbors for a ride, for a call. They feel like there's only a limited number of asks that they can make.
That's interesting.
And so how do we address that issue? Because
that-
apparently it's a prevalent issue.
Well, my
in our
understanding is
community.
part of the other side of the villages is that they're trying to have more of a social neighborhood feel to it, where people get to know each
Right.
other better. The old days when you sat out on your porch and you knew
What
your
a
neighbors,
concept.
you know, that's
Right.
pretty much gone. So I think if there were more of that kind of socialization going on, people would have a chance to
The
develop a
trust issue.
relationship, and you know,
And
and,
that trust
and not
issue,
feel
yeah.
so bad about asking someone for
Yeah,
some
absolutely.
help.
I can see that with the media putting out all of these home break-ins and all these things, the scams are taking advantage of
Oh,
the
yes,
elderly
yes.
too. It's a trust issue, so I
Right.
can understand that.
We got to look after
Totally
one
understand.
another. That community
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
So important.
is key. And what you do every month with the Beacon is build more and more community among us.
Thank you.
Stuart, thank you. We'll be right back after these messages. Back. Henry, welcome back.
Thank you.
Great to have you here. We're talking Alzheimer's, aren't we? When looking about diseases, do we want to know, or should we want to know, or not know if we're diagnosed?
Let me
That's an
start-
interesting question.
Yeah. Let me start off by saying that first of all, Alzheimer's is in the top 10 diseases for death here in America, and of that 10, Alzheimer's is the only one that does not have a cure.
Okay.
So we need to understand that. Okay. Recently, in the news, there's been a breakthrough in testing to predetermine that if you're going to have Alzheimer's later in life. And I guess with that rolling out, people are very optimistic about having cures down the road,
Right.
and all. But you know, is there a doom, gloom, or a positive aspect to look at that? And that's the real question.
But Henry, aren't we? I mean, we're at a society. In the past, doctors would hold information back because they thought it from the patients. They thought it was in the best interest of the patient. We've no longer. It's being open up front, giving options and everything else. You're talking about retreating back to an earlier time.
I don't know if it's a retreat, but let's look at it in two ways. Let's look at it in a positive way. When they did the testing and they found out that they had this test, that 90% accuracy rate,
Okay.
that they can find out if you are predisposed to it. So really with that, they are optimistic about people being able to change their lifestyle, because they say that people that change their diet to a healthier diet, that really get more physically active and who have the brain exercises or get socialized will have a better chance of not having dementia. The same thing would hold true, they're saying, for Alzheimer's. There's a
Or
possibility.
at least pushing it back.
Yes.
The onset.
Because they say that the medicine that they use when a person actually has Alzheimer's is a little late for
Okay.
them to help Alzheimer's. On the other hand, for people to know that they have it, some experts are saying that, people will get depressed. People have a doom and gloom outlook on their life. And those little times, I know I have it, but I use the excuse of playing football and having concussions, that you have a memory lapse. Now, if you know that you
I
have
call it having children, being a father.
if you have the tendency to forget something, you say now it's related to Alzheimer's.
Sure.
And I won't. I'm getting the onset now to believe. They have done some tests with people that they said that they had the tendency to have Alzheimer's, and they had a group that did not. So they tested them in memory, and those that they said that would have the likelihood of Alzheimer's failed the memory test
Right.
because of that, as opposed to the ones that
The suggestion that they-
So don't
yes.
people want to know that? I mean, obviously the family around them would know if their memory is slipping, and we all know that there's a strong connection with the genetics, and if you had an ancestor who had Alzheimer's. So
Well-
I don't see that it's that different.
Well, let's put it this way: 1 in 9 individuals that are 65 or over has Alzheimer's. Let's get that out the way. My aunt died of Alzheimer's. Okay, my mother had dementia, so I could say that I have a tendency, a high risk in the
Right.
family of
So does that
getting
make you
Alzheimer's.
depressed?
But the thing about it is, I have not been tested.
Yeah.
If I was tested and it was a definitive knowledge that I would get Alzheimer's, I don't really know how I would feel about
Yeah.
that. I would, get my things in order. I would make
Right.
sure that things are taken care of for my family. I could set up, medically, how it would be taken care of as a possibility. That's
Take a
a
trip
positive
around the
thing.
world, maybe? Or something?
Yeah.
Well, but
But on
that's-
the other hand, well, I mean, you look at it and say, well, why should I live? Why should I care?
Depressed.
About
Well,
anything like
for
that?
other things, there's other, like better reasons or good reasons to get tested. Like when HIV was first becoming prevalent and there were no long-term cures. I mean, obviously there was a reason why people should be tested because of a preventative thing, that you don't want to spread it because it's a communicable disease. But there was huge concerns about people's reactions to it. I mean, initially, it was like, okay, you get tested. The only way
death
you
sentence.
find out the results is to come in
Right.
and be told by a healthcare worker and, have an opportunity for counseling, because they really
We got
feared
30
of
seconds
how
left in this.
people were going to react to this.
Well,
And-
the good thing about this is that there is hope. I mean, because you find out that now you know what's something that you can tell, and they've looked at some protein
Okay.
that is naturally developed that could be setting back the Alzheimer's
Okay.
progression. So you look at it both ways.
Right.
Really.
Well, that's the last word on that segment. So much to talk about. I have a feeling Alzheimer's is going to keep coming up in this show.
Oh, absolutely.
Many years to come.
Many years to come.
Jane,
Yes.
so we go from what happens with older Americans and older citizens of the globe to our younger
Schools,
folks,
yeah.
schools. Why are we talking about schools in the summertime?
Well, schools are still rolling along. I mean, the majority of kids are not in school. Of
Right.
course, there are still summer school for kids who are enrolled in public school summer school.
And aren't those
that's
really
going-
the kids who didn't do very well, who goofed off all semester, and this is
Not-
their punishment going to school during the summer?
Okay, no. I mean, sometimes
that was
yes.
the correct answer.
Sometimes yes. No, I mean, in some cases, yeah. There are kids, like maybe some kids in high school who did fail classes and are taking it so that they're not getting
But the
behind
school,
in their
but the
credits
schools
and
are
things.
so much more now. I
Yeah.
mean,
But there's a lot of courses.
Yeah.
I mean, there's high school classes that you can take in the summer. You can take them in person or you can take them online, so
Right.
that maybe you don't have to use, especially if you want to have a very, extremely heavy academic course load, you might want to take health, a one semester class in the summer online. A lot of kids do that. And then a lot of the elementary and middle school summer schools are actually looking forward. that it's not something that, oh, okay, you didn't do well in math, so we're going to make you go to summer school. It's that, okay, you're taking algebra next year.
Let's get you
In
prepped.
8th grade, let's introduce you to some of the things. So
Okay.
a lot of the summer school is really a jump start. So that's basically the month of July. There's summer schools.
Are there
going on.
enrichment programs too?
There what?
Enrichment programs like art, music, and science?
Yeah,
and things
most
of
of
that sort?
those are not. They might be happening at schools, but they're not necessarily. They're not
They're
the school
privately done.
system. Yeah. But so a lot of kids are in that, and kids are in all kinds of
You know-
camps too. For
You know, if I know
childcare.
now what I knew, knew then what I know now about summer school, because I had a friend who went to summer school every summer. Okay, still had the opportunity to go out for sports and everything, but his senior year, he was taking art, some of the other easy courses, and just talking to college recruits. I'm up here struggling in geometry and everything else. Had I known, it would have been easy. Same thing in college. Take all these courses, especially during the summer. Then senior year,
Well, my
Cruise.
daughter's going to be a senior, is going to do an internship in state's attorney's office this coming
Okay.
year for 2 hours every day, which is going to be a tremendous
yes.
opportunity for her. So those kind of opportunities were not available when I was in
Yeah.
school.
And to be able to take those, and if she needs to take classes, the summer is
Right,
the
and
place
if there
to.
was
Yeah,
something
that
she
she
was-
still needed
she's
to
fine
fit
with her
in,
credits.
yeah.
She doesn't even have to.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if she had to, she could do
Yeah,
it herself.
yeah.
And then there's other things going on. I mean, during the school, at local school level, schools are busy. Every school is busy enrolling kids
Oh,
because
yes.
there's huge mobility in Montgomery County. People moving within Montgomery County and people moving into Montgomery County. And the International Students Office is huge during the summer and end of the summer. And so people are enrolling students. People are prepping for next
Companies,
year.
government, they use this summertime as their move time and
Right.
coming in.
Right.
So preview, as we move ahead, what starts going on in the schools in advance of students arriving? Is it August 1st when teachers start arriving? Or
No, teachers come back. Well, school starts this year August 25th,
Okay.
Monday, August 25th. So teachers come back a week ahead of time.
Yes.
I mean, there are people who do a lot. High school counselors actually have a number of days during the summer that they have to work. They're doing a lot of working out kids' scheduling, starting to work on, college admission
Sure.
support, things like that. The whole summer there's just deep cleaning, intensive cleaning in the schools.
And
so
the
everything's getting
principals are
shuffled
there
around.
year round, except
you're
when they
doing-
take
Yeah.
vacation.
Yes.
Yeah, the principals are
You're doing
there.
your
They're
master's
hiring
schedule,
people.
which is big,
Yeah.
especially in high school.
And at the central office, there's other things going on. For example, the Board of Education just approved a new health curriculum in June, and that had been something that they'd been working on for about a year. And so there's going to be significant differences, especially in the sections on family life, reproductive health, and whatever. Huge improvements in that. And so, so that the curriculum was approved in June, and that's, at the central office level. So now they have to get out to, so everybody who teaches health has to become familiar with this, and
Right.
then, it'll be probably the resource teacher at a school, and then it has to get spread out, and they've got to, prepare appropriate materials and make sure that that's all disseminated. So that there's other curricular changes that, people are working on, like, for example, in the math,
Okay. So
Especially Algebra 1.
Algebra 1.
we're
yeah.
saying algebra and health, that those are going to be big changes coming up.
I guess Algebra 1 curriculum was actually revised last year,
Right.
but when about 70% of Algebra 1 students
Right.
this spring
Didn't do so well.
failed the final, I have no doubt that there's a lot
And there's
of
a
work on
gigantic
Algebra 1.
controversy about
Yeah.
raising the or lowering the passing rate so
Right.
that more kids pass,
Yeah.
and that was just done.
We could be like the
unilaterally.
rest of Maryland.
I think it's just a
We
matter
got-
of
this
being
is-
able to teach them correctly
word.
and doing that. That's what I look at.
Okay, and I'm looking at, unfortunately, that we got to quit. I'm sorry, you guys. Thank you for being here, and that's what we're looking at. We're looking for you to come join us again next week for the edition, next week's edition of Montgomery Week in Review. I'm Don Mooers. Thank you very much.
You know where I was going with that, right?